Arrived at the last talk of the day. Okay. And this talk is by Dr. Gemma Perry. She is joining us from Bond University in Australia. She is a researcher and yoga teacher with a PhD in the psychology of chanting. So she is probably the only PhD in the psychology of chanting. She knows more about this subject than anyone in the world, I imagine. She studies how mantra meditation influences emotional and cognitive well-being. She combines scientific research with long-term practice. She investigates how specific sounds reduce stress, enhance social connection, and support mental health. And she aims to share her work widely through participation in workshops. So welcome, Gemma.
Hello, everyone. I imagine you can hear me okay. I can hear myself a little bit. And welcome to the chanting studio. You're in the chanting studio where some of the experiments happened. There's a tampura behind me here, which is an Indian instrument, provides like a drone sound. And I've got also a shruti box. I don't know if you can see that, which also provides like a drone, and there's also like an Indian type piano called a harmonium. Just to give you some context there. Now I'll share my slides. Okay. So I've been working with Professor Bill Thompson, actually honors, master's, PhD, and then postdoctoral research with Bill. And, you know, Bill's great for many, many things, but one of the things that he also knows is the time difference between Toronto and Queensland, which was also incredibly helpful for being here today. So thank you. We're assessing the benefits of chanting for individuals with breathing disorders and reporting on 2 studies that we have done as part of the SingWell project. So first of all, breathing and communication difficulties. I'm obviously in Australia, so reporting on Australian statistics, we have around 8.5 million people were estimated in 2022 to have chronic respiratory conditions. And actually, the last time that I presented at a SingWell conference online, there were 1 million less than that. So in 2018, I think we had stats for that then, and I don't know where that's population increase. I haven't looked into the details, but it's also the 3rd most likely death in Australia from breathing. So some of the psychosocial challenges that come with that are anxiety, depression, social isolation. Sometimes people can't actually get outside or move properly. Communication problems, they may not be able to finish long sentences or may have coughing, that kind of thing. And some of the more common conditions are asthma. Now we have long COVID, allergies, and COPD. So we're looking at chanting for breathing function, and the 2 studies I'll be reporting on were both done online. One was a 10-minute online chanting practice compared to a relaxation control, and the other is a 12-week online chanting program where participants came to an online session 1 hour a week. So what is chanting? It can take many forms. So I've just got a few different images here, and I could easily have 500 different images on this slide. So we have many different traditions around the world, and I know there's been a bit of conversation around individual and group, and with chanting, it can also be done individually or in a group. And it can be done vocally, and it can also be done silently. So that's one of the, I guess, big differences between chanting and singing is, I guess you could sing in your head, but chanting actually officially has this kind of contemplative aspect to it where you could be repeating the sound or the phrase internally. And this was something that we also used in the 12-week program where we mixed up a bit of vocal and silent chanting. The other thing that it can sometimes include is visualization. So you might visualize the breath coming in and out of the body as you're actually mentally repeating a sound or vocally repeating a sound. It often involves beliefs, so it can be part of many spiritual traditions, but it doesn't have to involve beliefs. And it's not usually considered a performance. So chanting is usually a participatory thing, so it's not really for its aesthetic qualities and things like singing or performative music. So the first study, and this one's published, the reference is just down the bottom there, was done online. So people turned up to an online session and they were either in the chanting group or the guided relaxation group. The chanting was 10 minutes of vocal chanting of the sound Om. So it's like long and that's the other thing with chanting. You can use a lot of those sounds. And the guided relaxation was people guided to relax different parts of the body. We had both healthy participants and people with breathing difficulties. They were both self-reported, and also we asked them to fill in the Nijmegen questionnaire, which gives us a measure of dysfunctional breathing. And that's how we've broken them up into these groups here with dysfunctional breathing and healthy breathing. And we looked at mood, autonomy, flourishing, social connection, and breathing effort and distress. Just a couple of the results here. We've got a positive mood. We found positive mood increased for chanting only in the dysfunctional breathing group. So healthy breathing, positive mood didn't increase, and the relaxation neither increased. In social connection, we found that it increased in the chanting group and the relaxation group, but only for the participants with breathing difficulties. And this was just before and after that 10 minutes of chanting or relaxation. We did do some qualitative interviews as well, and there were two themes that came out that were just kind of like shows a real difference between this chanting and relaxation. Where chanting, they felt a connection with others, and relaxation, they felt a connection with self. So even things like it reminded me that focusing on myself isn't selfish, it's necessary. It felt introspective and really tuning into my own body and my breathing rather than worrying about everything and everyone else. So that kind of relaxation practice seemed to be a little bit more of an internal experience, whereas the chanting, I felt like we were together in the same room. So even though people are participating online, knowing that they were part of a collective experience and chanting Om together made me feel part of a collective force. So the second study that we did was a 12-week chanting program, and this is the harmonium here. So that was used a lot with the chanting, often just for a drone sound where people could chant Om or other sounds. We always included Om, and this was also to keep the closed. You know, it's easier for people with breathing difficulties to make these closed sounds rather than lots of open, airy sounds. They participated 1 hour per week for 12 weeks. We had 5 minutes of a movement warm up, and then we had 30 to 40 minutes of vocal and silent chanting. I'm just going to report on the macro measures today, and we had people filling in a survey 2 weeks prior, immediately before the first week of chanting, then immediately after the 12th week of chanting, and then 2 weeks after the program had finished. To inspire them to do that last survey 2 weeks after the program had finished, we offered them a certificate of completion for the program, and also we offered access to recordings of the practices they had done during the program, which we also wanted to offer for them to continue the practice. We looked at breathing measures, including breath mastery, which is where people can actually feel if they are in a stressful situation, for example, they can actually manipulate the breathing to self-regulate. So that's breath mastery. We looked at anxiety, depression, flourishing, quality of life, and vocal quality of life. So here are some of the results. So this one was the Nijmegen questionnaire. Called hyperventilation is what it measures. So we can see that we've got baseline, which was the 2 weeks prior, pre, which is immediately before the first week, post immediately after the 12th week, and then 2 weeks follow up after that. So you can see between pre and post, we have a reduction in self-report hyperventilation, and also between pre and 2 week follow-up, that was also significant. And then we also just made sure, the effect of the chanting program relative to the baseline was also significant. Breathing dysfunction, we see similar pre and post reduction, and also pre and 2 week follow-up reduction, and also the effect of the chanting program relative to baseline was significant. Breath mastery. So this one, we want to go up, people feeling more able to control their breath. Pre and post significant, and pre and 2 week follow-up with relative to baseline also significant. And then lastly, the vocal difficulties also, they've reported less vocal difficulties pre and post, and at a 2 week follow-up. We also had qualitative interviews, and some of the themes that came out of those was well-being. So quotes like, "My mind goes very quiet, a sense of peace, helped me breathe lower and feel calmer." Social connection, a huge sense of being a community. Spiritual and self-connection, so a useful tool for healing really in my body. So very physiological response. I feel connected to the universe, so quite spiritual. And then we also had a theme coming up, which was difficulties sustaining the practice after the chanting program had finished. So having trouble integrating it into my schedule. And there are no surprises there. If anyone's tried to start anything, especially exercise or forming new habits or doing a meditation practice, we often find this resistance to. So just a summary of the chanting and breathing studies. So group chanting provides immediate and long-term benefits for people with and without breathing difficulties. It may provide psychosocial well-being, reduce breathing effort, and foster a sense of connection with others. So it may not be a cure, but chanting may be a complementary intervention for respiratory and psychological health. And then thank you to the team here, and obviously to SingWell for making all of this possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for that overview. Questions?
A question from online from Rashima. In using the phrase is there a difference between people who are part of the Indian community who have a connection to the mantra versus not, who may not have a background in the mantra?
Yeah, so we've looked at belief systems in some of our other studies, and we do find that having a belief, particularly a spiritual belief, with the sounds does seem to enhance the effects of the practice. But then, like as Frank was saying as well, we have this biomechanical. So whether you are humming or chanting the Om, we're going to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So I guess it depends on what you're actually measuring as to whether the effects are going to be different. Like if we're just measuring maybe cortisol or something physiological, we haven't done that with the different belief systems. But yeah, that's still going to happen with a belief or without.
Yeah, there's maybe I'll just add my 2 cents on this. I do think that belief matters in singing as well, but we don't have the data to support this. But it certainly helps if you're culturally familiar with the music, or if you're singing religious songs, if you can allow yourself to believe, at least in that moment, I think that does something. And this is totally speculative, but I would imagine that this believing in what you're singing about in a group, I don't know if you would agree, Gemma, believing in something is more likely to have reward properties, more likely to activate reward pathways, and potentially to have downstream consequence of release of opiates and pain mitigation. There is no support for this. This is all theoretical and speculative, but it seems right to me.
Yeah, so we've looked at least self-report kind of altered states of consciousness and mindful awareness, that kind of thing. And we looked at whether people were devoted to the practice they were doing. So whether they're practicing with this sense of devotion or whether they just had an intention for the practice. So even having like an intention, there's a lot of like prayers in chanting that you may just want peace for the world or anything like that. And then we found that those people with the devotion and also the higher intention were having more states of, say, flow and mystical experience.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask one more. Oh, good. Another question. Yeah, Isabel?
It may sound really weird, but when you sing, especially at home, you have internal vibrations. And this is rarely studied, but it is studied now on plants and cells and in the other contexts. I mean, it does sound crazy, but it's not, in the sense that there are serious studies out there that we don't consider in our field for the moment. But my prediction would be that a major difference between the two situations, between relaxation or mindfulness and the Om of chanting, is the internal vibration.
I'm asking you or Gemma to speculate on this, but do you think that it's a very intriguing, I don't know, it's okay. It's a very intriguing idea. And there is some ideas about low frequency vibration having therapeutic value. I don't know how strong the evidence base is, but it has some kind of an effect. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Yeah. Yeah, this is certainly multifaceted, I'm sure, Gemma. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's also like with some of the traditions, we have like a vocal chanting practice, we have a whispered chanting practice, and then we have a silent practice. And some of the traditions would actually say that that silent practice is seemingly more potent than the vocal one, and that there is a vibration in the silent repetition as well. And I mean, if we think about that, it does actually take, or if you try the practices, it takes a little bit more focus to do the silent practice. You have to be kind of a bit more experienced to stay involved in it. But it's also interesting to consider the silent and vocal vibration of it, especially with the belief systems. And the conversation about the social connection individually or in a group with some of the spiritual beliefs, they can feel a sense of connection by themselves due to those belief systems. So even if I'm chanting something that I have been in a community chanting, and this probably happens with singing as well. I've been chanting it in the community, you know, for 10 years, and then I go home and I do it by myself. I can still feel a sense of community as well.
Fascinating, very, very philosophical platform to end the day on. Thank you so much, Gemma.